They left him to die in the snow like garbage, and the woman they called Broken was the only one who stopped. This is the story of Alara Voss, a healer cast out by her own pack, starving on the edge of a frozen wasteland, who made one impossible choice that changed everything. When she found a dying warrior abandoned at a crossroads, everyone told her to walk away. Her former pack destroyed her last food to make sure she'd obey. She didn't. What happened next shattered a kingdom. Stay until the end. Like this video. Comment what city you're watching from. The wind came down from the northern peaks like something with teeth. Alara Voss wrapped her torn cloak tighter and kept walking, boots crunching through ice that had frozen over mud 2 days ago. The cold didn't bother her as much as it should have. That was one of the few advantages of being alone. No one around to remind you that normal people felt things differently. The trade crossing sat at the junction of 3 territories: Blackridge to the west, Ironfoot to the north, Ashenvale to the east. Neutral ground, supposedly. A place where packs met to barter and no one drew blood because it was bad for business. Alara hadn't been here in months, not since they'd marked her. She touched the scar on her left shoulder without thinking, then forced her hand down. The raised tissue spelled out a single word in the old territorial script: flawed. They'd burned it into her skin the night they drove her out. The crossing was quiet today. A few traders had set up stalls near the stone marker: dried meat, furs, a cart of root vegetables that looked half-rotted. Alara kept her hood up and moved along the edge of the clearing, eyes on the ground. If she didn't make eye contact, maybe no one would notice her. That's when she saw him. He was lying in the ditch just past the marker stone, half covered in snow. At first she thought it was a pile of rags someone had dumped. Then she saw the blood. Alara stopped. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, face turned toward the frozen dirt. His clothes were shredded, his back a mess of cuts and burns. One arm bent at an angle that made her stomach twist. He wasn't moving. She glanced around. A few traders were watching from their stalls, but none of them approached. One woman met Alara's eyes and shook her head slowly, a clear warning. Not your problem. Alara crouched beside the ditch. The man's breathing was shallow, barely there. His skin had that grayish tint that came right before the body gave up. She reached out, fingers hovering over his neck to check for a pulse. I wouldn't. The voice came from behind her. Alara didn't need to turn around to know who it was: Garen. She stood slowly and faced him. He looked exactly the same smug grin, same way of standing like he owned every inch of ground his boots touched. He'd been one of the enforcers who held her down while they burned the mark into her shoulder. This isn't your territory, Alara said quietly. Crossing's neutral ground. Garen stepped closer, flanked by 2 others she recognized. Mira, who'd laughed the loudest that night. Cade, who'd held the brand. Which means we're all just travelers here. Friendly conversation. Then have it with someone else. Garen glanced at the man in the ditch. You thinking about touching him? I'm thinking it's none of your business. See, that's where you're wrong. Garen crouched beside the ditch, studying the broken man like he was examining a dead animal. You know who this is? Alara said nothing. Course you don't. You've been living in that shithole cabin, scraping moss off rocks or whatever it is defects do. He straightened. This one's from Ironfang. High ranking, too. Maybe even royalty, hard to say. Someone wanted him gone real bad. So, help him, Garen laughed. Help him. Girl, use that broken brain of yours. Whoever did this wanted to make a statement. You get involved, you're choosing a side in something that'll get you killed. I'm not choosing anything. He's dying. Exactly. Garen's smile faded. So let him. The other 2 moved to flank her. Mira's hand rested on the knife at her belt. Alara's pulse kicked up, but she kept her voice level. I'm not bothering anyone. I'm just passing through. Yeah? Garen nodded toward the small pack slung over her shoulder. What's in the bag? Her stomach dropped. Nothing. Liar. He stepped forward and grabbed the strap, yanking it off her shoulder before she could react. He upended it onto the frozen ground. 3 small parcels wrapped in cloth tumbled out. Dried fish, a handful of old berries, half a loaf of bread she'd traded 2 rabbit pelts for. It was all the food she had. Pathetic, Mira muttered. Garen picked up the bread and turned it over in his hands. Then he looked at Alara and smiled. Here's the thing, he said. We're hungry, And you're not Pack anymore, so technically this, he held up the bread, doesn't belong to you. Garen, he threw it into the ditch. It landed in the slush next to the dying man. Alara's hands curled into fists. Garen crushed the dried fish under his boot, ground the berries into the mud. Cade kicked her empty pack into the trees. There, Garen said. Now you've got nothing, which means you've got no reason to stay. Walk away, Alara. Forget you saw this. Go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. She didn't move. Garen's smile vanished. I'm not asking, and I'm not leaving. For a moment, no one spoke. The wind howled through the trees. One of the traders at the stalls turned away, pretending not to see. Garen leaned in close. His breath smelled like rot. You touch him, he said quietly, and I'll make sure everyone knows. Every pack within 100 miles will hear that the flawed one interfered in Iron Fang business. You think your life is hard now? You'll be dead in a week. Alara met his eyes. Then I guess I better make it count. She turned her back on him, dropped to her knees beside the ditch, and pressed her fingers to the man's neck. The pulse was there. Faint, irregular, but there. Behind her, Mira laughed. She's actually doing it. Let her, Garen said. Saves us the trouble. Boots crunched in the snow as they walked away. Alara ignored them. She pulled the man's arm straight, felt the bone grind, heard him groan even though he was unconscious. His face was a mess of bruises, one eye swollen shut. Someone had beaten him methodically, carefully. This wasn't a fight. This was punishment. She needed to move him. The cabin was 2 miles east, uphill through dense forest. He was easily twice her weight. Alara dragged him out of the ditch. It took her 20 minutes to fashion a sled from broken branches in her torn cloak. Another 10 to get him onto it. By the time she started pulling, the sun was dropping behind the peaks and the temperature was plummeting. No one helped. The traders packed up their stalls and left without a word. A few glanced at her as they passed, expressions carefully neutral. One old man shook his head slowly, like he was watching someone walk off a cliff. Alara pulled. The sled scraped over ice and caught on roots. Her shoulders burned. Her hands went numb. Halfway up the first hill, she had to stop and vomit from the effort, leaning against a tree while her vision swam. The man didn't wake. She kept going. By the time she reached the cabin, full dark had fallen and she couldn't feel her fingers. She dragged the sled up to the door, shoved it open with her shoulder, and pulled him inside. The cabin was one room. A fireplace on the north wall, a rough bed against the east, a table and 2 chairs she'd built herself. Shelves lined with jars of herbs, dried roots, tinctures she'd spent months preparing. It wasn't much, but it was hers. Alara dragged the man to the bed and heaved him onto it. He groaned again, a sound that rattled in his chest. She needed to get him warm, needed to clean the wounds, needed... She stopped. Needed food, which she didn't have, because Garen had destroyed it. Alara closed her eyes and breathed. Panic wouldn't help. She still had water, still had her supplies. She could boil roots, make a broth. It wouldn't be much, but it would keep him alive until she could hunt tomorrow, if he lived that long. She built a fire, filled a pot with snow, set it to boil. While the water heated, she cut away his shredded clothes. The wounds were worse than she'd thought. Deep lacerations across his back, burns on his ribs, bruises that went bone deep. Someone had whipped him. Someone had used fire. She cleaned the cuts with boiled water and honey, the only antiseptic she had left, stitched the worst ones with thread she'd made from sinew, wrapped his ribs, set the broken arm as best she could. He didn't wake. By the time she finished, the fire had burned low and her hands were shaking. Alara sat on the floor beside the bed, back against the wall, and stared at the man she'd just saved. He was young, maybe 30, maybe less. Dark hair, strong jaw, the kind of build that came from years of training. Even beaten half to death, there was something about him that felt solid, grounded. "Who are you?" she whispered. He didn't answer. Alara closed her eyes. She was so tired she could barely think. Tomorrow she'd need to check his wounds again, find food, figure out what to do if he didn't wake up. Tomorrow she'd need to deal with the fact that she'd just made an enemy of Garen and probably signed her own death warrant. Tomorrow. Tonight, she just needed to breathe. She must have fallen asleep because the next thing she knew, the fire had burned down to embers and someone was moving. Alara's eyes snapped open. The man was awake. He'd pushed himself half upright, one hand pressed to his ribs, breathing hard. His eyes swept the cabin, quick, assessing, the way a fighter sizes up a threat. Then he saw her. For a moment, neither of them moved. "Where am I?" His voice was rough, barely more than a rasp. "My cabin, 2 miles from the crossing." Alara stayed where she was, hands visible. "You were dying. I brought you here." He stared at her. "Why?" "Because no one else would." He looked down at himself, saw the bandages, the splint on his arm, touched one of the stitches on his ribs, then winced. "You did this?" "Yes." "You're a healer." "Something like that." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he met her eyes again, and she saw something shift in his expression. Recognition, maybe. Or just exhaustion. "What's your name?" he asked. "Elara Voss." He nodded slowly. "Ronan Hale." "Nice to meet you, Ronan Hale. Try not to tear your stitches." He almost smiled. Almost. Then his face went gray and he slumped back onto the bed, unconscious again. Alara let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "You're welcome," she muttered. The next 3 days were a blur. Ronan drifted in and out of consciousness, never awake for more than a few minutes at a time. Alara changed his bandages, forced broth down his throat when he could swallow, and tried not to think about the fact that her food stores were almost gone. She set snares in the forest, but came back empty-handed. Wrong season, wrong terrain. The game had moved to lower ground weeks ago. On the 4th day, she woke to find Ronan sitting up in bed, staring at her. "You look terrible," he said. Alara blinked. "Good morning to you, too. When did you last eat?" "I eat." "That's not what I asked." She stood and moved to the fireplace, stirring the pot of root broth that had been their only meal for 2 days. "I'm fine." "You're lying. And you're rude." He actually smiled at that. A small, tired thing, but genuine. "Fair." Alara ladled broth into a wooden bowl and handed it to him. "Drink." He took it, but didn't drink. Just held it, studying her face. "What?" she said. "You saved my life." "I know." "Why?" She'd been asking herself the same question. The easy answer was because he was dying. But that wasn't the whole truth. She'd walked past plenty of dying things in her life. Animals caught in traps. People too far gone to help. She'd learned to harden herself, to keep moving, because stopping meant getting hurt. So why had she stopped this time? "I don't know," she said finally. "Seemed like the thing to do." Ronan was quiet for a moment. Then he drank the broth, slow and careful. When he finished, he set the bowl aside and looked at her again. "The enforcers at the crossing. They know you." It wasn't a question. "Yes." "They called you something. I heard it before I passed out." Alara's hand moved to her shoulder, fingers brushing the scar beneath her shirt. "Doesn't matter." "It does if it puts you in danger." "I was in danger the moment I dragged you out of that ditch." "Then why did you?" She met his eyes. "Maybe I'm tired of walking away." Something passed between them, an understanding, maybe. Or just the shared weight of 2 people who'd both been left for dead. Ronan leaned back against the wall, wincing as the movement pulled his stitches. "I need to tell you something." "Save your strength." "No, you need to hear this." He took a breath. "The people who did this to me, they're not going to stop. They'll come looking, and when they find me, they'll kill anyone who helped me." "I figured. I'm serious, Alara. These aren't border raiders or rival packs. He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "They're connected, powerful. If they find out you sheltered me, they'll make an example of you." "Let them try." "You don't understand." "I understand plenty." Alara crossed her arms. "I understand that someone beat you half to death and left you in a ditch like trash. I understand that every person at that crossing saw you and walked away. I understand that whoever you are, you're someone's enemy. But right now, you're in my cabin, in my bed, eating my food. So until you can walk out that door on your own, this is where you stay." Ronan stared at her. Then he laughed. A short, painful sound that made him clutch his ribs, but genuine. "You're insane," he said. "Probably. I'm serious. You're going to get yourself killed. Not the first time someone's told me that. He shook his head, but he was still smiling. What did they call you? At the crossing? Alara's smile faded. It doesn't matter. Tell me. She looked away. Flawed. Why? Because I am. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Thank you. Alara glanced at him. For what? For being insane. Despite everything, she smiled. That night, Alara woke to the sound of breaking glass. She was on her feet before she was fully conscious, knife in hand, heart hammering. The cabin was dark except for the dying embers in the fireplace. Ronan was still asleep or unconscious. She couldn't tell. Another sound. Footsteps outside, crunching through snow. Alara moved to the window and peered through a crack in the shutters. 3 figures stood at the edge of the clearing. Wolves, all of them. She could see it in the way they moved, the way they held themselves. Pack hunters. One of them stepped forward into the moonlight. Garen. Alara's blood went cold. He was carrying a torch. So were the others. They spread out, surrounding the cabin. Alara Voss! Garen's voice cut through the night. I know you're in there. Come out. She didn't move. We just want to talk, Garen continued, about your guest. Beside the bed, Ronan stirred, his eyes open, sharp and alert despite the pain. He saw her by the window and went still. Alara put a finger to her lips. Garen was getting closer. You made a mistake, Alara, bringing him here, keeping him alive. People are asking questions, important people, and they want answers. She looked at Ronan. He was trying to sit up, but his body wasn't cooperating, too weak, too broken. We can do this easy, Garen said, or we can do it hard. Your choice. Alara's grip tightened on the knife. Then Ronan spoke, his voice barely a whisper. There's a root cellar, under the floor, north corner. She shook her head. I'm not hiding. You're not. I am. He was already moving, dragging himself toward the corner of the room. They don't know if I'm here. Don't let them find out. Ronan, trust me. She did. She didn't know why, but she did. Alara helped him into the cellar, a shallow pit she'd dug for storing vegetables that hadn't lasted through winter. He fit, barely. She replaced the wooden boards and covered them with a rug. Then she opened the door. Garen stood on her threshold, torch in hand, flanked by Mira and Cade. His smile was all teeth. Took you long enough. What do you want? Alara kept her voice flat. I told you, we're looking for someone. Garen stepped inside without asking, glancing around the cabin. Tall guy, probably half dead. Seen anyone like that? No. Really? He walked to the bed, studying the rumpled blankets. Because someone was sleeping here. I was. In this big bed? All by yourself? Garen ran a finger along the blood-stained sheets. That's a lot of blood, Alara. I cut myself. Uh-huh. He moved to the shelves, poking through her jars and supplies. You know what I think? I think you're lying. I think you brought him here just like I said you would. And I think he's either dead. He picked up a jar and dropped it. Glass shattered on the floor. Or hiding. Alara didn't move. Garen turned to face her. Last chance. Where is he? I don't know what you're talking about. Wrong answer. He nodded to Cade, who grabbed Alara's arm and slammed her against the wall. Pain exploded in her shoulder, the old scars screaming. Cade pressed his forearm across her throat. Check the place, Garen ordered Mira. Mira moved through the cabin, overturning the table, kicking through Alara's supplies. She stomped on the rug in the north corner. Once, twice. Alara held her breath. Mira moved on. He's not here, she said finally. Garen stepped closer, studying Alara's face. You're protecting him. Why? I'm not protecting anyone. Then you won't mind if we burn this place down, just to be sure. Cade tightened his grip on her throat. Black spots danced at the edges of Alara's vision. Do it, Garen said. Mira threw her torch onto the bed. The blood-stained sheets caught immediately, flames spreading fast. Smoke filled the cabin, and something inside Alara snapped. She didn't know what it was, didn't understand it, but she felt it, a pressure building in her chest, hot and wild and desperate. It surged up through her ribs, her throat, her skull, and then it exploded. Light erupted from her hands, blinding, searing. Cade screamed and stumbled back, clutching his face. The flames on the bed guttered and died, snuffed out like candles. The force of it threw Mira across the room. Garen staggered, shielding his eyes. Alara stood in the center of the cabin, breathing hard, hands still glowing with that impossible light. "Get out," she said. Her voice didn't sound like her own. Garen stared at her, fear flickering across his face. Then he grabbed Cade and dragged him toward the door. "This isn't over," he snarled. "Yes," Alara said. "It is." The light flared brighter. Garen ran. The moment they were gone, Alara collapsed. The glow faded, leaving her shaking on the floor, the cabin dark and silent except for the sound of her own ragged breathing. Footsteps. Ronan, pulling himself out of the cellar. He crawled to her side, eyes wide. "What was that?" he whispered. Alara stared at her hands. They looked normal, but she could still feel it, that heat, that power, coiled somewhere deep inside her. "I don't know," she said, but they both knew she was lying. The light had left scorch marks on the floor. Alara sat staring at them while dawn crept through the shutters, pale and cold. 4 black handprints seared into the wood where she'd pressed her palms when she fell. The cabin still smelled like smoke and burnt hair. Ronan hadn't spoken in over an hour. He'd pulled himself back onto the bed and now sat with his back against the wall, watching her. His face was careful, neutral, the way you'd look at something dangerous. "Say it," Alara said finally. "Say what?" "Whatever you're thinking, just say it." Ronan was quiet for another moment. Then, "How long have you been able to do that?" "I can't. I saw it." "So did I. Doesn't mean I understand it." She flexed her fingers. They looked normal, felt normal, but she could still remember the heat, the way something inside her had ripped open and poured out. "I've never done anything like that before." "Never?" "Never." He studied her face. "You're sure?" "I think I'd remember shooting light out of my hands, Ronan." "Fair point." He shifted, wincing as the movement pulled his stitches. "What did it feel like?" Alara tried to find the words. "Like something woke up, something that's been sleeping my whole life, and suddenly it just—" She made a helpless gesture. "Exploded." "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore. When it happened, it felt like my chest was on fire. Now it just feels empty." Ronan nodded slowly, like he was fitting pieces together in his head. "The enforcers. They called you flawed. I told you it doesn't... It matters." His voice was firm. "Tell me why they marked you." Alara's hand moved to her shoulder again. The scar burned like it always did when someone asked. "When I was 16, I didn't shift. At all. Not even close. Everyone else in my pack went through their first transformation that year. Mine never came. They tested me, had the elders examine me, tried every ritual and route they knew." She laughed bitterly. "Nothing worked. So they decided I was broken, defective, a drain on pack resources. That's insane. That's pack law. If you can't shift, you can't hunt, can't fight, can't contribute. You're useless." She met his eyes. "They gave me a choice. Leave voluntarily, or they'd drive me out and make sure everyone knew what I was. I chose to leave. But they marked you anyway." Garen's idea. Said it was a kindness, so other packs would know not to waste their time on me. Her jaw tightened. He held me down himself while they did it. Ronan's expression went cold. "And you still helped him at the crossing." "I didn't help him. I ignored him. You could have let him die in that ditch. So could everyone else." They sat in silence for a while. Outside, birds were starting to call, tentative morning sounds. The kind of quiet that made everything feel fragile. "What if it's connected?" Ronan said finally. Alara looked up. "What?" "Your inability to shift. That power you just used. What if they're the same thing?" "That doesn't make sense." "Doesn't it? You said something inside you woke up. Something that's been sleeping. What if it wasn't sleeping? What if it was blocked? What if the reason you couldn't shift is because your power was going somewhere else?" Alara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong. But the words stuck in her throat because part of her, a part she'd been trying to ignore, knew he might be right. I don't know what I am, she said quietly. Neither do I. Ronan leaned forward, serious. But I know what's going to happen next. Garen saw what you did. He's going to tell people. And when word spreads that there's someone out here with that kind of power, he stopped. They'll come for you. Let them. Ilara, I'm not running. Not again. This isn't about pride. You're right. It's about survival. She stood, started gathering the broken glass from the floor. I ran once and look where it got me. Living alone in the middle of nowhere, scraping by, waiting to die. I'm done running. Then you need to understand what you're up against. Ronan's voice went quiet, heavy. The people who did this to me, they're not like Garen. They're organized, ruthless. And if they find out you have power, they'll either kill you or control you. There's no middle ground. Who are they? He hesitated. Ronan, if I'm in danger, I deserve to know why. My brother, he said finally. His name is Maddock, and he wants me dead because I'm the only thing standing between him and the throne. The words hung in the air like smoke. Ilara stopped cleaning and turned to face him. Throne. I'm from Iron Fang, the main pack, not the border territories. My father was Alpha. When he died 3 months ago, the succession should have passed to me, but Maddock had other plans. He tried to kill you. He did kill me. Or thought he did. Had his enforcers beat me until I stopped breathing, then dumped me at the crossing as a message to anyone who might support my claim. Ronan touched the scar on his ribs. I should be dead. Would be, if you hadn't found me. Ilara sat down slowly. Your royalty. Was. Now I'm just a guy bleeding in your cabin. That's not funny. Wasn't trying to be. She ran her hands through her hair, trying to process. A king. She'd saved a king, which meant the people looking for him weren't just enforcers. They were an entire pack's worth of soldiers. Maybe more. You need to leave, she said. What? As soon as you can walk, you need to go. Find your allies, rebuild your strength, take back your throne. But you can't do it from here, and I can't. She stopped. I can't be part of this. You already are. No, I saved your life. That doesn't make me responsible for your war. Ronan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You're right. It doesn't. And if you want me gone, I'll go. But you should know something first. What? That power you used last night. Maddock's going to hear about it, and when he does, he's going to send people. Real soldiers, not border thugs like Garen. They'll come here, tear this cabin apart, and drag you back to Iron Fang whether you want to go or not. Why would they bother? I'm nobody. You're not nobody. You're someone with power. Rare power from the look of it. That makes you valuable. And valuable things don't get to stay hidden. Ilara felt something cold settle in her stomach. So what are you saying? I'm saying your only chance is to come with me. Find out what you are. Learn to control it. Because right now you're a weapon that doesn't know how to aim, and people are going to use that against you. I'm not a weapon. No, you're worse. You're a weapon that thinks it's not dangerous. She wanted to hit him, wanted to scream that he didn't know anything about her, that he had no right to waltz into her life and tell her what she was. But she couldn't. Because part of her, the part that had felt the power rip through her hands, knew he was right. I need time, she said. We don't have time. Then make some. Ronan sighed. Ilara. A sound cut him off. Distant, but getting closer. Footsteps. Multiple sets, crunching through snow. They both froze. Ilara moved to the window. Through the trees, she could see shapes moving. 6 of them. Maybe 7. Armed from the way they moved. Spread out in a hunting formation. Is there a back way out? Ronan asked quietly. No, just the door. Then we're trapped. The footsteps got closer. Ilara could hear voices now, low and deliberate. They were surrounding the cabin. They're not here to talk, Ronan said. I know. Can you do it again, that light thing? I don't know how I did it the first time. Great! Ilara grabbed her knife. It felt pathetic in her hand, a piece of sharpened metal against trained killers, but it was all she had. The footsteps stopped. Then a voice called out, cold and commanding. Ronan Hale, we know you're in there. Come out, or we're coming in. It wasn't Garen. Ronan's face went pale. That's Valen, Maddox's second in command. Friend of yours? He's the one who broke my arm. Wonderful. Hale, Valen called again. You have 10 seconds. Then we burn the place down with both of you inside. Alara looked at Ronan. He was trying to stand, but his legs weren't cooperating. Too weak, too broken. Go, he said. What? Out the door. Tell them I'm dead. Tell them you found me that way and buried the body. They'll search the cabin, but if you're convincing enough, they might believe you. And leave you here? I can't fight, Alara. Can barely stand, but you've got a chance if you run. I'm not leaving you. Then we both die. Fine. Alara, I said fine. She moved to the door, hand on the latch. If we're doing this, we do it together. Ronan stared at her. Then slowly, he smiled. You really are insane. You mentioned, Alara opened the door. 7 soldiers stood in the clearing, all armed with swords and crossbows. They were bigger than Garen's crew, harder, professional. At their center stood a man with ice-gray eyes and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Valen. He studied Alara with the same expression someone might use to examine a bug. You the healer? Depends who's asking. I'm asking, where's Hale? Dead. Show me the body. Buried it. Where? North Ridge. Didn't seem right, leaving him for the scavengers. Valen's eyes narrowed. You're lying. Believe what you want. He gestured to 2 of his soldiers. Search the cabin. If he's in there, drag him out. If she's lying, kill her. The soldiers moved forward. Alara didn't step aside. You set foot in my home, and you won't leave. One of the soldiers laughed. That a threat? It's a fact. Valen tilted his head, almost curious. You know who I am? No? Good. Then you'll know enough to move. Can't do that. Then you'll die. The soldiers were 3 steps from the door when Alara felt it again. That pressure, that heat, building in her chest, crawling up her throat, burning behind her eyes. She raised her hands. Light exploded from her palms. It wasn't like before. This time it was wild, uncontrolled, a wave of raw energy that slammed into the soldiers and threw them back like rag dolls. 2 of them hit trees and didn't get up. The others scattered, shouting. Valen stumbled but stayed on his feet. He stared at Alara, shock flickering across his face. What are you? He breathed. Alara didn't answer. The light was still pouring from her hands, and she didn't know how to stop it. Her vision swam. Her legs buckled. Then Ronan was there, somehow dragging himself through the doorway and grabbing her shoulders. Alara, stop! She couldn't. The power was too much, too big. It was going to rip her apart. Ronan shook her. Listen to me. You have to control it. I don't know how. Yes, you do. You're not broken. You're not flawed. You're strong. Now prove it. Something in his voice cut through the chaos. Alara focused on it, on him, and pulled. The light stuttered, flickered, then died. She collapsed against him, gasping. The clearing was silent except for the groans of injured soldiers. Valen was still standing, but his sword was drawn and his hand was shaking. You're coming with me, he said. No, Ronan said. She's not. I'm not asking Hale. Maddox wants her alive. But if you make me, I'll drag her back in pieces. Try it. Valen's smile was cold. Brave words from a man who can't stand. He moved fast, faster than Alara could react. One moment he was across the clearing, the next he was in front of them, blade raised. Ronan shoved Alara aside and threw himself forward. The sword caught him in the shoulder. Blood sprayed hot and red. No! Alara screamed. Valen yanked the blade free and raised it again. But before he could strike, something shifted in the air, a ripple, like heat haze, but colder, sharper. Ronan's eyes went black. Not the pupils. The entire eye. Black as pitch, empty as a void. And then he moved. Alara had seen wolves fight before. She'd seen trained soldiers, border raiders, pack enforcers. She'd seen fast. This wasn't fast. This was something else. Ronan moved like smoke, like shadow. He caught Valen's wrist mid-swing and twisted. Bone snapped. Valen screamed. Ronan drove his knee into the man's ribs, grabbed his throat, and slammed him into the ground hard enough to crack the frozen earth. Then he stopped. His eyes cleared, going from black to their normal hazel. He stared at his hands, still wrapped around Valen's throat, like he didn't recognize them. "What?" he started. Valen coughed blood and laughed. "There it is. The beast." Ronan let go and stumbled back. The remaining soldiers were on their feet now, moving in. Alara grabbed Ronan's arm, half dragging him toward the tree line. "Run!" she gasped. They ran. Behind them, Valen's voice followed, ragged and furious. "Find them! I want them alive!" The forest swallowed them whole. Alara didn't know where she was going, didn't care. She just ran, pulling Ronan along, his blood leaving a trail in the snow. They crashed through undergrowth, stumbled over roots, kept moving even when her lungs burned and her legs screamed. Finally, when she couldn't take another step, she dragged him behind a cluster of fallen trees and collapsed. Ronan was barely conscious, his face gray. The wound in his shoulder was deep, still bleeding. "Stay with me," Alara whispered. He tried to speak, couldn't. His eyes fluttered closed. "Ronan, hey, look at me." He didn't move. Alara pressed her hands to the wound, trying to slow the bleeding, but it was too much. She didn't have her supplies, didn't have anything. Just her hands and her will and the desperate hope that it would be enough. And then she felt it again, the heat, the power. But this time, it didn't explode. It flowed, warm and steady, pouring from her palms into his shoulder. She watched, stunned, as the flesh began to knit itself together. Not completely, not perfectly, but enough to stop the bleeding, enough to keep him alive. When it was done, she pulled her hands away and stared at them. "What am I?" she whispered. No one answered. She sat there in the snow, holding a dying king, listening to the sounds of soldiers searching the forest. They were getting closer. She could hear them calling to each other, coordinating their search. They had maybe 5 minutes before they were found. Alara looked at Ronan's unconscious face, thought about the way he'd thrown himself in front of that blade, the way his eyes had gone black, the way he'd moved like something that wasn't entirely human. "We match," she said quietly. "Both broken. Both monsters." She pulled him deeper into the shadows and waited. The soldiers passed within 10 feet of their hiding spot. Alara held her breath, pressed against the fallen tree, Ronan's weight heavy against her side. She could see their boots, hear their voices. "Check the creek bed." "He's bleeding. Can't have gone far." "Valen wants them tonight. Keep looking." They moved on. Alara counted to 100, then another 100. When she was sure they were gone, she shook Ronan gently. "Wake up." His eyes opened. Clear now, no trace of that black emptiness. He looked at her confused. "What happened?" "You tried to die again. I stopped you." He touched his shoulder, felt the partially healed wound. "How?" "Same way I threw light around. I don't know." She helped him sit up. "Can you walk?" "I can try." "That's not good enough. We need to move, now." Ronan nodded and let her pull him to his feet. He swayed but stayed upright. "Where do we go?" Alara thought fast. The cabin was gone. Garen knew where she lived. Valen's soldiers were combing the forest. Going back to any pack territory would be suicide, which left one option. "North," she said. "North is the waste." "I know." "No one survives the waste. Then no one will follow us there." Ronan stared at her. "You're serious? You got a better idea?" He didn't. They started walking. The waste was a stretch of barren land beyond the northern territories, where the ground was too rocky for farming and the cold too bitter for anything but the hardiest plants. Stories said it was cursed, that people who went in never came out. Alara had always figured those were just stories meant to keep people from exploring. Now she was about to find out. They walked for hours. The forest thinned, the trees becoming stunted and twisted. The snow deepened. The temperature dropped. Ronan leaned on her more with each step, his breathing labored. "How far?" he asked. "Until we can't see them anymore." "Alara, just keep moving." But even as she said it, she could feel herself weakening. The power she'd used had taken something from her. She was hollow, empty. running on nothing but stubbornness. When she finally saw the cave, she almost cried with relief. It was small, barely more than a crack in a hillside, but it was shelter. Alara dragged Ronan inside and let him collapse against the stone wall. She slumped beside him, too exhausted to move. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They just sat there, bleeding and broken, listening to the wind howl outside. "We can't stay here," Ronan said finally. "I know. They'll keep looking. I know. Maddox won't stop until he finds us." "I know." Ronan turned to look at her. "Then why did you save me?" Alara met his eyes. "Because someone had to." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." They held each other's gaze. And in that moment, something passed between them. An understanding. A recognition of two people who'd been cast out, broken, left for dead, and refused to stay down. "We're gonna die out here," Ronan said. "Probably. But not today. Not today." He smiled. It was tired, painful, but real. "You really are the most stubborn person I've ever met." "Good." Outside, the wind picked up. Snow began to fall, heavy and thick. Alara could hear it piling against the entrance to the cave, sealing them in. They were trapped, alone, hunted. But they were alive. And for now, that was enough. Ronan's breathing evened out as he drifted into sleep. Alara stayed awake, watching the entrance, her hands resting in her lap. They looked normal, but she could still feel that heat, coiled somewhere deep inside her. Waiting. "What am I?" she whispered again. This time, in the darkness of the cave, she thought she felt something answer. "Shush." "Update." Alara woke to silence. The storm had passed. Pale morning light filtered through the snow that blocked the cave entrance. Beside her, Ronan was still asleep, his breathing shallow but steady. She stood slowly, joints aching, and started digging through the snow. It took 20 minutes to clear enough space to see outside. The waste stretched before her, endless and white. No trees, no landmarks. Just snow and stone and the distant silhouette of mountains that looked like jagged teeth against the sky. Behind her, Ronan stirred. "Where are we?" he asked. "The edge of everything." He pulled himself up and joined her at the entrance. When he saw the view, his expression went carefully blank. "We need supplies," he said. "Food, water, medicine. We won't last 3 days out here without them." "I know." "Any ideas where we get those?" Alara pointed east, where a thin line of smoke rose from somewhere beyond a ridge. "There. That's a settlement." "Yes." Which means people. Also, yes. "Who will probably recognize me and turn us in for the bounty Maddox put on my head." "Probably." Ronan looked at her. "And we're going anyway." "Unless you want to freeze to death first," he sighed. "I liked you better when you were just a healer." "No, you didn't." They started walking. The settlement turned out to be smaller than Alara expected. 5 buildings clustered around a central square, all made of dark wood and stone. Smoke rose from chimneys. She could smell bread baking, hear the ring of a blacksmith's hammer. "Stay out of sight," she told Ronan. "Let me handle this." "You sure?" "No, but you're a wanted man and I'm just a nobody. Better odds." She pulled her hood up and walked into the square. A few people glanced at her, but no one stopped her. She made her way to what looked like a trading post, pushed open the door, and stepped inside. The interior was warm, cluttered with supplies. An old woman sat behind a counter, sorting through dried herbs. "Help you?" the woman asked without looking up. "I need food, medicine, enough for 2 people, 3 days." "That'll cost you." Alara hesitated. She had nothing. No coin, no goods to trade. Just the clothes on her back and a knife she couldn't afford to lose. The old woman looked up, saw her face, and went still. "You're the one," she said quietly. Alara's heart sank. "I don't know what you—" "The healer. From the crossing." The woman stood, moving around the counter. "Word's been spreading. They say you can make light with your hands. That you saved a dying king." "I didn't." "They say Maddox offering a reward. 10,000 marks for information leading to your capture. 20,000 if you're delivered alive." Alara's hand moved into her knife. The old woman smiled.
Relax. I'm not turning you in. Why not? Because 20,000 marks doesn't mean much if you're dead, and Maddox's been making a lot of people dead lately. She turned back to her shelves and started pulling supplies. You're running. Smart. The waste will kill you slower than his soldiers would. We just need food, medicine, enough for 3 days. I heard you. The woman packed everything into a leather satchel.
Take this too. She pulled out a small compass. Straight north, you'll find the ruins of an old watchtower. 2 days' walk, maybe less if you push. There's a cache there, more supplies, warmer clothes. Left it there myself years ago. Why are you helping me? The old woman met her eyes. Because I had a daughter once. Maddox's enforcers killed her when she refused to bend the knee. So if you're going to be a thorn in his side, I want you to survive long enough to draw blood. She handed Alara the satchel. Thank you, Alara whispered. Don't thank me. Just don't die. The woman paused. And if you do manage to kill that bastard, do it slowly. Alara left the shop with the supplies and found Ronan waiting in the shadows between buildings. Got what we need, she said. I saw. Who was that? Someone with her own reasons to hate your brother. There are a lot of those. They left the settlement and headed north, following the compass bearing. The wind picked up, cutting through their clothes. But with food in their bellies and a destination in mind, the cold felt a little less hostile. They walked in silence for a while. Then Ronan said, Can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you shift? Alara had been expecting the question. I told you I couldn't. But why? Everyone else in your pack could. What made you different? She was quiet for a long time, then, My mother. What about her? She wasn't pack. She was... Alara struggled to find the words. Something else. No one would tell me what. But she had power. Different power. The elders said it was wrong, unnatural. When I was born, they tested me. Tried to see if I'd inherited it. When I didn't shift, they assumed the power had broken me instead. But it didn't. No, it just took longer to wake up. Ronan nodded slowly. Your mother, is she dead? When I was 5, the pack elders said it was an accident, but I never believed them. I'm sorry. Don't be. I barely remember her, She stopped. Just her hands. They used to glow sometimes when she was healing. Same light I make now. They walked in silence for a while longer. Then Ronan said, That thing that happened when I fought Valen. My eyes. I saw. It's happened before. Not often. Usually when I'm close to dying or when the anger gets too strong. I black out, and when I wake up, people are dead, and I don't remember killing them. What is it? I don't know. My father called it a curse, said it ran in our bloodline, but he never explained more than that. Maddox has it too, but he learned to control it, use it. Ronan's jaw tightened. He's stronger than me because of it. You're alive. That makes you strong enough. For now. They found the watchtower just before sunset on the second day. It was half collapsed, the stones worn smooth by centuries of wind and weather. But the cache was there, hidden beneath a loose stone in what used to be the foundation. Warm clothes, dried meat, a water skin, even a bedroll. She really did leave all this, Ronan said, marveling. Told you. They set up camp in the most sheltered corner of the ruins and built a small fire. The warmth felt like a luxury. Alara wrapped herself in one of the blankets and watched the flames dance. What happens now? She asked. We keep moving, put as much distance between us and Maddox as possible. Find allies, if we can. People who'll stand against him. You really think you can take back the throne? I don't know, maybe. If I can control... He gestured vaguely at himself. This thing inside me. If I can find enough support, if we don't freeze to death first. That's a lot of ifs. It's all I've got. Alara pulled the blanket tighter. What about me? What about you? Once you take back your throne, assuming you survive that long, what happens to the healer who saved your life? Do I go back to being an outcast? Ronan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, No, you stay with me. As what? I don't know yet. But you don't go back to that cabin. You don't go back to being alone. He paused. If you want. Alara felt something warm uncurl in her chest. Not the power, something quieter, steadier. "I'll think about it," she said, but they both knew she'd already decided. They sat by the fire until it burned low, talking in fits and starts, sharing stories, learning each other. And for the first time since the crossing, Alara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It was fragile, dangerous, the kind of thing that could get her killed, but it was real. And that night, as she drifted off to sleep with the ruins of an old world around her and a broken king at her side, Alara Voss allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't flawed after all. She was something else entirely, something the world wasn't ready for. Something was wrong. Alara woke to the feeling before she understood it. The air felt different, heavier, like the moment before lightning strikes. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake Ronan. The fire had burned down to embers. Outside the ruins, the world was still dark, but the quality of the darkness had changed. It wasn't the soft black of night anymore. It was dense, suffocating. She stood and moved to the gap in the wall where they'd entered. The waste stretched out before her, but something was moving across it. Not people, not animals, shadows. Dozens of them, flowing over the snow like oil spreading across water. Her breath caught. She'd heard stories about shadow walkers, creatures that existed in the space between alive and dead, drawn to power like moths to flame. Most people thought they were myths, old tales meant to scare children. Most people were wrong. "Ronan," her voice came out hoarse. "Ronan, wake up." He was on his feet instantly, hand reaching for a weapon he didn't have. "What is it?" "Look." He moved beside her and went very still. "Those aren't—" "Yes, they are. Shadow walkers don't exist." "Tell them that." The shadows were getting closer. Alara could see shapes within them now, almost human, but wrong. Limbs that bent at angles that shouldn't work, faces that were just suggestions of features, and they were moving directly toward the watchtower. "They're tracking something," Ronan said quietly. "Us." "How? We've been careful. Doesn't matter how. They're coming." Alara felt that familiar heat building in her chest. "Get behind me." "Alara, now." He didn't argue. The shadows reached the base of the tower. For a moment, they just pooled there, writhing. Then one of them started climbing. Not walking up the stones like a person would, just flowing upward, defying gravity. Alara raised her hands. The light came easier this time. She felt it building, responding to her will, and when she released it, it shot forward in a focused beam. The shadow creature hit by it shrieked, a sound like metal scraping glass, and dissolved. But 3 more took its place. "There are too many," Ronan said. "I noticed." She hit another shadow, then another. But for every one she destroyed, 2 more appeared. They were pouring up the walls now, filling the tower, closing in. One of them lunged at her. She threw up her arm and light erupted from her palm, catching it mid-leap. The creature exploded into wisps of darkness that dissipated in the air. But the effort cost her. She could feel her energy draining with each blast. Her vision swam, her legs shook. Another shadow came at her from the side. Before she could react, Ronan was there. His eyes had gone black again, that void dark emptiness, and when he grabbed the creature, it screamed and turned to smoke in his hands. He looked at her, those terrible black eyes expressionless. "Run." "Not without you. I said run." His voice wasn't his own. It was deeper, colder, like something ancient speaking through him. More shadows lunged, and he met them, moving with that impossible speed, tearing them apart with his bare hands. Alara hesitated. Then another shadow came at her, and she didn't have a choice. She ran. She crashed through a gap in the wall and stumbled down the hill, snow grabbing at her boots. Behind her, she could hear Ronan fighting, or whatever was using Ronan's body. The sounds were inhuman, snarls and shrieks that made her teeth ache. Then, suddenly, silence. Alara stopped running and turned back. The tower was dark. No movement, no sound. "Ronan," she called. Nothing. She started climbing back up the hill. Every instinct screamed at her to keep running, but she couldn't, not if he was still in there. She reached the tower and peered inside. Ronan was standing in the center of the ruins, surrounded by dissipating shadows. His back was to her. His shoulders heaved with each breath. "Ronan?" He turned slowly.
His eyes were still black. "Get away from me," he said. That same wrong voice. No. Can't control it.
If I hurt you, you won't. You don't know that. Ilara stepped closer. Yes, I do. He flinched back. Ilara, please. She closed the distance between them and grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. His skin was ice cold. The black in his eyes seemed to pulse, alive. Listen to me, she said firmly. Whatever this is, it doesn't own you. You're stronger than it. Now come back. I can't, Yes, you can. Look at me. Not through me. At me. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the black began to recede. Color seeped back into his eyes, hazel with flecks of gold. He gasped and collapsed forward. Ilara caught him, barely, and they both went down. He was shaking, his whole body racked with tremors. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Stop. You saved my life. I could have killed you. But you didn't. He pulled back enough to look at her. His eyes were his own again, but the fear in them was raw. What if next time I do? What if I lose control and then I'll bring you back, just like I did tonight? You can't promise that. Watch me. They sat there in the ruins as dawn began to break, two broken people holding each other up against the cold. When Ronan's shaking finally subsided, Ilara helped him to his feet. We need to keep moving, she said. Where? I don't know, but we can't stay here. Those shadow walkers came from somewhere, and they'll send more. Ronan nodded. They gathered what supplies they could salvage and started walking north again, leaving the watchtower behind. The landscape grew harsher as they traveled. The snow gave way to bare rock. The wind cut like knives. They saw no signs of life. No animals, no plants, nothing but endless gray stone and empty sky. On the third day, they found the bodies. There were 5 of them, frozen solid, half buried in a drift. Soldiers, from their armor. But not Maddox's men. These wore different colors, blue and silver instead of red and black. Iron Fang's northern garrison, Ronan said quietly, or what's left of it. Ilara knelt beside one of the bodies. The man's face was locked in an expression of terror. What killed them? I don't know. Could have been the cold, could have been something else. Like what? Like whatever lives out here that's worse than shadow walkers. They moved on quickly after that. That night, they found shelter in a cave that was barely more than a crack in the rock face. No fire this time, nothing to burn, and they couldn't risk the smoke. They huddled together for warmth, sharing body heat. Tell me about Iron Fang, Ilara said. Before Maddox. Ronan was quiet for a while. Then, it was different. My father, he believed in order, but not cruelty. Strong laws, but fair ones. People respected him. Some even loved him. What changed? He got sick, started making mistakes, forgetting things. By the end, he could barely remember his own name. Maddox saw an opportunity and took it. Ronan's voice went hard. He poisoned the council against me. Said I was weak. Said the pack needed a stronger leader. By the time our father died, half the nobles were already backing Maddox's claim. And the other half? Dead, exiled, or too scared to speak up. But some must still support you. Otherwise, Maddox wouldn't be so desperate to kill you. Maybe. Or maybe he just wants to make sure there's no one left to challenge him. Ronan shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position against the cold stone. Either way, I can't take back the throne alone. I need an army. I need allies. And right now, I have neither. You have me. He looked at her. One healer who doesn't know how to control her power. One healer who saved your life 3 times now. Fair point. They fell silent again. The wind howled outside. Ilara could feel exhaustion pulling at her, but she fought it. Something about this place felt wrong, like they were being watched. Ronan? Yeah? When your eyes go black, do you remember anything? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, pieces, flashes. It's like watching someone else use my body. I can feel what they're doing, but I can't stop it, can't control it. Has it always been like that? No. When I was younger, it was just rage, pure blind fury. I'd black out and wake up with blood on my hands. My father taught me to suppress it, lock it down. But the more I suppress it, the stronger it gets when it breaks free. So don't suppress it. What? You heard me. Stop fighting it. Learn to work with it instead. Alara, that thing inside me, it's not something you work with. It's something you survive. Sounds familiar. She held up her hands, let a faint glow light the cave. I spent my whole life thinking I was broken because I couldn't shift. Turns out, I wasn't broken, just different. Maybe you're the same. Ronan stared at her glowing hands. That's not the same. Isn't it? We're both carrying something we don't understand, something that scares us. But we're still here, still fighting. For now. That's all any of us have? He didn't respond, but she could see him thinking, turning her words over in his mind. Eventually, exhaustion won. Alara drifted into an uneasy sleep, her head resting against Ronan's shoulder. She woke to the sound of voices. Her eyes snapped open. The cave was still dark. Ronan was already awake, tense beside her. The voices were coming from outside. Multiple people speaking in low, urgent tones. Tracking them this far. No sign of bodies. Must still be alive. Soldiers. Maddox men, from the sound of it. Alara and Ronan locked eyes. He pointed deeper into the cave. She nodded. They crawled backward, moving as silently as possible. The cave narrowed but didn't end. There was a passage barely wide enough for them to squeeze through. They pushed into it just as light appeared at the entrance. Clear, someone called. Check further in. Footsteps echoed against stone, getting closer. Alara and Ronan kept moving, pressing deeper into the passage. It twisted and turned, the walls so close Alara could touch both sides with her elbows. Her breath came fast and shallow. If the passage dead-ended, they were trapped. Then the walls fell away. They stumbled into a larger space. Alara couldn't see anything in the darkness, but she could feel the emptiness around them. A cavern, maybe. Or something bigger. Light, Ronan whispered. Alara hesitated. If she made light, the soldiers would see it. But if she didn't, they might walk right off a cliff. She let a faint glow build in her palm, just enough to see by. The cavern was enormous. The floor dropped away 10 feet in front of them, falling into darkness so deep her light couldn't reach the bottom. Across the chasm, maybe 20 feet away, was another ledge, and what looked like a tunnel leading out. Behind them, the soldiers were getting closer. We have to jump, Ronan said. That's 20 feet. I know. Over a bottomless pit. Also know that. This is insane. You keep saying that like it'll stop us. Alara looked at the gap, at the darkness below, at the tunnel on the other side that might lead to freedom or might lead nowhere. The soldiers' voices echoed closer. Together, she said. They backed up as far as the ledge allowed. Ronan counted down from 3. On 1, they ran. Alara's boots hit the edge and she launched herself into nothing. For one terrible moment she was suspended in the air, the darkness yawning beneath her, certain she'd misjudged the distance. Then her hands hit rock. She scrabbled for purchase, fingers finding a crack. Beside her, Ronan had caught the ledge too. They pulled themselves up and rolled onto solid ground, gasping. Behind them, light flooded the passage they'd left. Movement! Someone shouted. But Alara and Ronan were already running, plunging into the tunnel on the far side. It twisted downward, deeper into the earth. The air grew warmer. Strange sounds echoed from somewhere ahead, clicks and whispers that might have been water, or might have been something else. The tunnel opened into another cavern. This one had light, a faint blue glow coming from crystals embedded in the walls. And in the center of the space, carved from the living rock, was a throne. They both stopped. What is this place? Alara whispered. Ronan moved closer to the throne. It was massive, built for someone, or something, much larger than human. Symbols were carved into its surface. Old symbols, the kind that predated written language. I've heard stories, he said slowly, about places like this, sites of the old power, before the pacts, before the territories, when things that weren't quite human ruled these lands. You think that's real? After Shadow Walkers and whatever's inside me? Yeah, I think it's real.
Alara approached the throne. The symbols seemed to pulse as she got closer, responding to something.
She reached out. Don't! Ronan grabbed her wrist. We don't know what it does. It's responding to me, to my power, which is exactly why you shouldn't touch it. But even as he said it, Alara felt that pull. The same sensation she got when her power woke up, like recognizing a part of herself she'd forgotten. She pulled free of Ronan's grip and pressed her palm to the throne. The world exploded into light. Not the warm glow she usually created. This was cold, sharp. It ripped through her like lightning, and suddenly she wasn't in the cavern anymore. She was somewhere else, everywhere else. She could see the past, hundreds of years ago. Beings of pure energy walking the earth, shaping it with thought alone. The first packs forming, the wars that followed. Her mother, young and terrified, holding a baby in a cave while soldiers searched outside. That baby was the present. Maddox sitting on a throne that should have been Ronan's, making plans. Armies gathering. A map with her location marked in red. Vaylin leading soldiers through the waste, tracking them, getting closer. The future. Multiple futures, branching like cracks in ice. In one, she and Ronan die in these caves. In another, they make it out but are captured and executed. In another, they reach Iron Fang and burn it to the ground. In another, she saw herself. But different. Standing in a throne room with light pouring from her hand so bright it was blinding. And beside her, Ronan with those black eyes. But he wasn't fighting it anymore. He was using it, controlling it. Together, they were devastating. Then the vision ended and she was back in the cavern, gasping. She pulled her hand away from the throne and stumbled back. Ronan caught her. What happened? What did you see? Everything. Her voice shook. I saw, Ronan, I know what I am. What? I'm a luminary. My mother was one too. They're rare. Born once every few generations. We can channel the old power, the same force that created the packs in the first place. I don't understand. I'm not broken. I never was. I just wasn't meant to be a wolf. I was meant to be something else, something older. Ronan stared at her. A luminary. I've heard that word. My father mentioned them once, said they died out centuries ago. Not all of us. Does this mean you can control your power now? I think so. Or at least I know what it is, where it comes from. She looked at her hands. They weren't glowing, but she could feel the power there, steady, waiting. And I saw something else. Maddox soldiers. They're close, maybe a day behind us. Then we need to move. No. Alara met his eyes. We need to stop running. What are you talking about? This whole time we've been running from Maddox, hiding, trying to survive. But we can't run forever. Eventually, he'll find us. Eventually, we'll run out of places to hide. So what do you suggest? We go to him? Ronan stared at her like she'd lost her mind. You want to walk into Ironfang, where Maddox has an army, where we'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. Yes, that's suicide. Maybe, or maybe it's the only way we win. She gestured to the throne, to the cavern around them. This place showed me something. We're stronger than we think, both of us. But only if we stop hiding from what we are. Alara, you said you need allies, people who'll stand with you against Maddox. How do you think you'll get them? By hiding in caves? Or by proving you're strong enough to lead? I can't fight him. Not yet. That thing inside me is part of you. Accept it. Use it, or it'll destroy you from the inside. Ronan turned away, running his hands through his hair. She could see him wrestling with it. Fear and hope and desperation all tangled together. You're asking me to become the thing I've spent my whole life trying not to be, he said quietly. No, I'm asking you to become who you actually are. He was silent for a long time. Then, if we do this, if we go to Ironfang, we're probably going to die. I know. And you still want to go. Yes. Why? Alara thought about the cabin, about being alone, about spending years pretending she was less than she was because it was easier than fighting. Because I'm tired of surviving, she said. I want to live. Ronan turned to look at her, and in that moment something shifted between them. an understanding, a choice. Okay, he said, we go to Iron Fang. Together. Together. They left the cavern through a different tunnel, one that led upward. The blue crystals lit their way, growing brighter as they climbed. Eventually, they saw daylight ahead. They emerged on a cliff face overlooking a vast valley, and in the distance, barely visible through the haze, was a city, Iron Fang. Even from here, Alara could see how massive it was. Stone walls 50 feet high, guard towers every 100 yards, banners bearing Maddox's colors, red and black, snapping in the wind. Last chance to change your mind, Ronan said. Not a chance. They started down the cliff. The descent took hours. By the time they reached the valley floor, the sun was setting. They found a stream and cleaned themselves as best they could, found berries and roots to eat, tried to look less like fugitives and more like travelers. It didn't work very well. We look like hell, Alara said, studying their reflection in the water. Speak for yourself. I look rugged. You look like you fought a bear and lost. A very large bear. Despite everything, she laughed. It felt strange. Good. They camped that night at the edge of a forest that bordered the valley. No fire again. Just the two of them and the stars. What's the plan? Alara asked. We can't just walk up to the gates and knock. Why not? Because they'll kill us on sight? Not if we're prisoners. Alara turned to stare at him. Explain. Maddox wants us alive. He wants to make an example. If we let ourselves be captured, controlled capture, not real capture, we get inside the city, inside the fortress. And then what? Then we improvise. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? She didn't. They worked out the details through the night. It was risky, borderline suicidal, depended on too many things going right and almost nothing going wrong. It was also their only chance. At dawn, they walked toward Iron Fang. The guards at the outer checkpoint saw them coming from half a mile away. By the time Alara and Ronan reached the gates, there were 20 soldiers waiting, weapons drawn. Ronan raised his hands. I'm Ronan Hale. I'm here to surrender. The soldiers didn't move. They looked confused, suspicious. Then one of them, a captain from his insignia, stepped forward. This is a trick. No trick. I'm tired of running. I want to see my brother. King Maddox doesn't negotiate with traitors. I'm not negotiating. I'm surrendering. There's a difference. Ronan gestured to Alara. Both of us. Take us to Maddox. Let him decide what to do with us. The captain studied them for a long moment. Then he signaled to his men. Bind them. Rough hands grabbed Alara's arms. Iron shackles closed around her wrists. The metal was cold, heavy. Beside her, Ronan received the same treatment. If you try anything, the captain said, we'll kill you both. Slowly. Understood, Ronan said. They were marched through the gates. Iron Fang was even more intimidating from inside. The streets were wide and clean. Buildings made of dark stone rose on either side. People stopped to stare as the prisoners were led through. Some looked curious. Others looked satisfied. Alara kept her head up, tried not to let the fear show. The fortress sat at the city's center, a massive structure of black granite that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of stone. They were taken through the main gates, down a corridor lit by torches, and finally into a throne room. Maddox sat on a throne of dark wood and iron. He was bigger than Ronan, broader through the shoulders. His face had the same strong features, but there was something cruel in the set of his mouth. His eyes were the same hazel as Ronan's, but colder. Well, Maddox said. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. My wayward brother returns, and he's brought a gift. He was looking at Alara. Leave her alone, Ronan said. Your fight is with me. No, my fight was with you. Past tense. You lost. Maddox stood and walked down the steps of the dais. He circled them like a predator studying prey. This is something different. This is a luminary standing in my throne room. Do you have any idea how rare that is? Alara's blood went cold. How did you know what you are? Please, I have scholars, historians, people who understand the old power. He stopped in front of her. Did you really think you could walk into my city and I wouldn't recognize what you were? Then you know what I can do. Oh yes, which is why you're not going to do it. He gestured and soldiers moved to flank them. crossbows raised and aimed. One wrong move and 20 bolts go through both of you. Your power is impressive, but I don't think even a luminary can stop 20 projectiles at once. He was right. Alara felt the power coiled inside her, ready. But if she used it, Ronan would die. So here's what's going to happen, Maddox continued. You're going to do exactly what I say. And in exchange, I'll let him live. For a while. Don't listen to him, Ronan said. Quiet. Maddox didn't even look at him. You had your chance to rule. You were weak, sentimental. Father's favorite, but that didn't make you fit to lead. I'm doing what you never could, making the pack strong. United. United through fear, Ronan spat. Fear works. Love is a luxury we can't afford. Maddox turned back to Alara. But power, real power, that's different. With a luminary at my side, I could expand our territory, bring the other packs to heel, build an empire. I'll never help you. You will, because the alternative is watching your king die in front of you, slowly, painfully. He smiled. I'll even let you choose how. Alara looked at Ronan, saw the resignation in his eyes. He'd known this was a possibility, had accepted it. She hadn't. Okay, she said quietly. Alara, no, I said okay. She met Maddox's eyes. I'll do what you want. Just don't hurt him. Maddox's smile widened. Smart girl. Take them to the cells. Separate cells. I don't want them conspiring. The soldiers grabbed them and dragged them toward a side door. Alara caught one last glimpse of Ronan's face, angry, desperate, before they were pulled in different directions. The cell they threw her in was small. Stone walls. Stone floor. One tiny window too high to reach. The shackles stayed on. Alara sat with her back against the wall and closed her eyes. She'd lied to Maddox. She wasn't going to help him, but she'd needed him to think she would. Needed him to feel secure. To let his guard down. Because what she'd seen in that vision, what the throne had shown her, wasn't just the past and present. It was the future. And in that future, she and Ronan didn't lose. They burned everything down. She just had to figure out how to make that future real before Maddox figured out she was playing him. Outside her cell, she heard footsteps. Keys rattling. The door opened and Valen walked in, his arm still in a sling from where Ronan had broken it. The king wants to see you, he said. Time to prove you're useful. Alara stood slowly. What does he want me to do? You'll see. She was led out of the cell through corridors into a courtyard. Soldiers lined the walls. In the center, tied to a post, was a man she didn't recognize. He looked terrified. Maddox stood beside the post. This man is a traitor. He was caught trying to smuggle information to my brother's supporters. The old punishment for treason is death. But I thought we'd try something new. He gestured to Alara. Kill him. The courtyard went silent. No, Alara said. That wasn't a request. You said you'd do what I wanted. I want him dead. Use your power. Show my soldiers what a luminary can do. The man at the post was sobbing now, begging. Alara looked at Maddox, at the soldiers, at the trapped, desperate man who was about to die whether she helped or not. This was the test. This was Maddox establishing control. If she obeyed, he owned her. If she refused, Ronan died. So she did neither. She raised her hands. Let the light build. The man at the post screamed, and Alara released it, not at him, but at the chains holding her wrists. The iron exploded. Fragments hit the soldiers nearest her. Alara spun and threw light at the guards on the walls. They went down screaming. Chaos erupted. Maddox's eyes went wide. Kill her! Crossbows fired. Alara threw up a shield of light, and the bolts dissolved before they reached her. She was moving now, fighting like she'd never fought before. Not thinking, just reacting. Pure instinct and power. She hit the ground and everything went white. When her vision cleared, half the courtyard was on fire. Soldiers were scattered like broken dolls. And Maddox was standing in front of her, his own eyes gone black, just like Ronan's. You made a mistake, he said in that wrong voice. Then he lunged. Alara barely got her hands up in time. His fist hit her light shield, and the impact sent her flying. She hit the wall hard enough to crack stone. Maddox was on her in seconds. He grabbed her throat and lifted her off the ground. His grip was crushing. She couldn't breathe. You could have had everything, he said. Now you'll have nothing. Black spots danced across Alara's vision. She tried to summon her power but couldn't focus, couldn't think. Then someone hit Maddox from the side. Ronan. Somehow he'd gotten free. His eyes were black too, that void, dark emptiness. The two brothers collided in a tangle of limbs and fury. Alara fell, gasping. She could only watch as they fought. It wasn't like normal combat. They moved too fast, hit too hard. The ground cracked beneath them. The air itself seemed to warp. They were evenly matched. Neither could gain an advantage. Then Maddox's hand closed around Ronan's throat. I should have killed you properly the first time. Probably, Ronan gasped. And then he smiled. Because behind Maddox, Alara had gotten to her feet, and her hands were glowing brighter than they ever had before. Maddox saw her expression and started to turn. Alara released everything. The blast hit Maddox square in the back and threw him across the courtyard. He hit the far wall and slumped, unconscious. The remaining soldiers stared in shock. Ronan's eyes cleared. He looked at Alara, then at his unconscious brother, then at the burning chaos around them. So much for improvising, he said. Then the real army arrived. The real army poured through the gates like a flood. Hundreds of soldiers in formation, shields locked, spears bristling, war horns blared. The sound made Alara's teeth ache. She grabbed Ronan's arm and pulled him toward the nearest doorway. Move! They ran. Behind them, orders were being shouted. Boots hammered stone. Crossbow bolts clattered off the walls where they'd been standing seconds before. Ronan was limping badly, one hand pressed to his ribs. Blood seeped between his fingers. Where are we going? Anywhere that's not here. They burst through a door into what looked like a servant's corridor. Narrow, dimly lit, twisting. Alara took the first turn she saw, then another. The sounds of pursuit echoed behind them but grew more distant. Finally, they stumbled into a storage room and Ronan collapsed against a wall of grain sacks. Let me see, Alara said, kneeling beside him. He moved his hand. The wound wasn't deep, but it was bleeding freely. Maddox had gotten him during the fight. Alara pressed her palm to it and let her power flow. Not the explosive kind, the healing kind. Warm and steady. The flesh knit slowly. Not perfect, but enough to stop the bleeding. Thanks, Ronan said when she pulled away. We're even now. Pretty sure I'm still ahead by at least 2. 3, but who's counting? Despite everything, despite being trapped in the heart of enemy territory with an army hunting them, Ronan smiled. We're insane. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. Alara sat back against the opposite wall. Her whole body ached. The power she'd used in the courtyard had drained her more than she'd expected. She felt hollow, shaky. What now? She asked. Honestly, I have no idea. Ronan's smile faded. We just attacked the king in his own fortress, in front of his entire army. There's no coming back from that. Wasn't planning to come back. Alara, I mean it. We came here to end this, one way or another. By end this, you mean take the throne, expose Maddox for what he is. Give the Pax a reason to stand with you instead of him. Ronan stared at her. You're talking about a coup. I'm talking about finishing what we started, with just the 2 of us. You have a better plan? He didn't. They sat in silence for a while, listening to the sounds of soldiers searching the fortress, voices calling, doors slamming, the systematic sweep of a military force that knew its prey was trapped. They'll find us eventually, Ronan said quietly. I know. And when they do, they'll kill us. Or worse. Also know that. He looked at her, really looked. Why are you doing this? You could have run, back in the courtyard. You had the power. You could have fought your way out and disappeared into the waste. Why stay? Alara thought about her answer carefully. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not alone. And I'm not giving that up without a fight. Something shifted in Ronan's expression. He reached out and took her hand. His grip was warm, solid. When this is over, if we survive, I'm making you my queen. That's a terrible idea. Why? Because I'm a cast-out healer with no pack, no family, and no idea what I'm doing. Perfect. Neither do I. He squeezed her hand. We'll figure it out together. Before Alara could respond, voices echoed outside the storage room. Close, too close. They both froze. Check every room, someone ordered. They can't have gone far. Footsteps approached the door. Alara looked around frantically. The room had no other exits, just walls of supplies and one door that soldiers were about to come through. Hide, Ronan whispered. Where? He pointed to a stack of grain sacks piled against the far wall. Behind those, I'll draw them off. No. Alara, please, let me do this. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him they'd face this together like they'd faced everything else. But the footsteps were right outside now. No time. She dove behind the grain sacks just as the door opened. 3 soldiers entered, young by the look of them, nervous. The first one had his sword drawn but held it like he wasn't quite sure what to do with it. Ronan stood slowly, hands raised. Easy. The soldiers stopped. For a moment no one moved. Then the first soldier said, You're the traitor, Ronan Hale. Former prince, technically. We're supposed to bring you to the king. Maddox's not the king. I am. The second soldier laughed. You're a dead man walking. Maybe, but before I die, you should know something. Ronan lowered his hands. Your king murdered my father, poisoned him slowly over months, made it look like illness. Then he killed anyone who questioned it, executed loyal soldiers, drove out good people who'd served the pack for decades. That's treason talk, the first soldier said, but his voice shook. It's the truth. You know it is. You've seen what he does to anyone who disagrees with him, the fear he rules by. Ronan took a step forward. Is that the leader you want? Is that the pack you want to be part of? The third soldier, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. My brother. He questioned one of Maddox's orders. They executed him in the courtyard. Made us all watch. The first soldier shot him a look. Shut up. Why? It's true. Maddox's a tyrant. Everyone knows it. We just don't say it because we want to live, the first soldier finished. He looked at Ronan. Even if everything you're saying is true, what difference does it make? You're one man. He has an army. I have something better. Ronan's eyes went black. The soldiers stumbled back. The first one raised his sword, but he was shaking so hard the blade wavered. Wait, Alara said, stepping out from behind the grain sacks. All 3 soldiers turned to stare at her. Ronan's eyes cleared and he shot her an exasperated look. You were supposed to stay hidden, he said. Since when do I do what I'm supposed to? The first soldier swung his sword toward her. You're the luminary, the one who attacked the king. He attacked me first. I was defending myself. That's not... It is how it happened. Your king tried to force me to execute an innocent man. When I refused, he tried to kill me. Ronan stopped him. She let light build in her palm. Not threatening, just visible. I don't want to hurt any of you, but I will if I have to. The soldiers exchanged glances. The third one, the one whose brother had died, lowered his weapon. What do you want from us? He asked. Tell the truth, Alara said. About what you saw in the courtyard. About what really happened. Maddox tried to execute a man for carrying information. He tried to force me to kill. When I refused, he attacked. That's what your soldiers saw. So no one will believe us, the first soldier said. They will if enough of you speak up. The second soldier shook his head. You're asking us to commit suicide. I'm asking you to choose what kind of pack you want to be part of. One ruled by fear or one ruled by something better. Silence stretched. The 3 soldiers looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Finally, the third one nodded. Okay. Kyle, the first soldier started. No, she's right. I'm tired of being afraid, tired of watching good people die for no reason. Kale looked at Ronan. You really think you can beat him? I think I have to try. Kale glanced at his companions. The second soldier sighed and nodded. The first one hesitated, then lowered his sword. We'll help, he said. But if this goes wrong, we're all dead. If we do nothing, we're dead anyway, Kale said. Just slower. Ronan stepped forward. What's your name? Sergeant Dalen, sir. Don't call me sir, not yet. Ronan held out his hand. Just Ronan. Dalen stared at the offered hand, then slowly he reached out and clasped it. What do you need us to do? He asked. Over the next hour, they laid out a plan. It was risky, depended on timing and luck, and soldiers being willing to turn on their king, But it was a chance Dalen and his companions would spread word quietly among the soldiers they trusted. Tell them what really happened in the courtyard. Plant seeds of doubt about Maddox's legitimacy. When the moment was right, when Ronan confronted Maddox again, they'd need those soldiers to stand down, or better yet, stand with them. How will we know when? Kyle asked. Ronan glanced at Alara. You'll know, trust me. The soldiers left to begin spreading the word. Alara and Ronan remained in the storage room, knowing it was only a matter of time before the search reached them again. You think they'll actually do it? Alara asked. I think they want to. Whether they'll have the courage when the moment comes, he shrugged. We'll find out. Very reassuring. I'm not in the reassurance business. Alara paced the small room. Her power had recovered somewhat, but she could still feel the strain. Using that much energy in the courtyard had pushed her to her limit. She needed rest, food, time. They had none of those things. Ronan, she said. Yeah? When your eyes go black, when that thing takes over, can you control it at all?
He was quiet for a moment. Why? Because if we're going to face Maddox again, we need every advantage, and that, whatever it is powerful. If you could use it without losing control. I've tried. My whole life I've tried. It doesn't work like that. Maybe you've been trying the wrong way. He looked at her. What do you mean? You said your father taught you to suppress it, lock it down. But what if that's the problem? What if fighting it is what makes it take control? You're saying I should just let it out? I'm saying maybe you need to work with it instead of against it. She moved closer. When I first used my power, it was explosive, uncontrolled, dangerous. But the more I accepted it as part of me, the more I could direct it, shape it. That's different. Your power comes from being a luminary. Mine comes from... He stopped. I don't even know what it comes from. Then maybe it's time to find out. Ronan looked down at his hands, turned them over like he was seeing them for the first time. You really think I can control it? I think if you don't, Maddox will kill us both, and I'd really prefer to avoid that. He almost smiled. Fair point. Alara sat beside him. Try something for me. Close your eyes. Alara, just try. He sighed but obeyed. Alara took his hand. Now, she said quietly, stop fighting. Stop pushing it down. Just feel it. Whatever's inside you, don't try to control it. Just acknowledge it's there. This is insane. You keep saying that. Ronan went quiet. His breathing slowed. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then his hand went cold in hers. Alara felt the change immediately. The temperature in the room dropped. Shadows seemed to deepen in the corners. And when Ronan opened his eyes, they were black. But this time, something was different. I can see you, he said. His voice was still his own. Not that wrong alien tone. I'm still here. How does it feel? Like holding on to something that wants to tear me apart. But I'm holding it. Good. Now let it go. What? Release it, slowly. Ronan's eyes flickered, black to hazel, back to black, then finally back to normal. He gasped and nearly fell forward. Alara caught him. That was, he started. Progress. That was terrifying. Also progress. He laughed shakily. If that's what progress feels like, I'm not sure I want more of it. Too bad. You're getting it anyway. They practiced for another 20 minutes. Each time, Ronan was able to hold the transformation a little longer, control it a little better. By the end, he could shift his eyes at will and maintain awareness. It wasn't perfect. He was exhausted, drenched in sweat. But it was a start. This changes things, he said. That's the idea. A sound outside made them both freeze. Not soldiers this time. Something else. A low, rhythmic thumping that shook dust from the ceiling. What is that? Alara whispered. Ronan moved to the door and cracked it open. His face went pale. War drums. What does that mean? It means Maddox calling a gathering. Every soldier in the fortress, every noble, everyone. He looked at her. He's going to make an announcement. About us? Probably. And knowing my brother,
It won't just be an announcement. It'll be a demonstration.
Alara's stomach sank. He's going to execute someone. To show what happens to traitors and those who help them. Yes. Then we need to stop him. Alara, there will be hundreds of people there, thousands maybe. We can't eat. Yes, we can. She stood. This is what we came here for. To show the Pax who their real king is. To prove Matic isn't fit to rule. By walking into a trap? By taking back what's yours. Ronan stared at her. Then slowly, he nodded. You're absolutely insane.
You mentioned. They left the storage room and followed the sound of the war drums. The corridors were mostly empty now. Everyone was heading to the main courtyard. Alara and Ronan moved with the flow of people, keeping their heads down, hoods up. The courtyard was massive, 3 times larger than the one where Alara had fought earlier. It was packed with soldiers, nobles, servants, everyone pressed shoulder to shoulder, facing a raised platform at the far end. Matic stood on the platform. He'd recovered from Alara's blast. His face was bruised, one arm hanging stiffly at his side, but he was upright, projecting strength. Beside him stood Valen and a dozen elite guards. And in front of the platform, kneeling with their hands bound, were Dalen, Kyle, and the other soldier who'd helped them. Alara's breath caught. He knows, Ronan said quietly. We have to... Wait. He gripped her arm. Not yet. If we move now, we'll just get them killed faster. Matic raised his hand and the war drums stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. My people, Matic's voice rang out, clear and commanding. We are gathered today to witness justice. These 3 soldiers, men who swore oaths to serve the Pack, have committed treason. They aided the traitor Ronan Hale and his accomplice. They spread lies, sowed discord, questioned their king. The crowd murmured. Some looked uncomfortable. Others nodded in agreement. The punishment for treason, Matic continued, is death. But I am not without mercy. I will give these men one chance, renounce the traitor, pledge their loyalty to me, and they will be spared. He looked down at the 3 kneeling soldiers. Well, what do you say? Dalen raised his head. Even from across the courtyard, Alara could see the fear in his eyes, but his voice was steady when he spoke. Ronan Hale is the rightful king. You're a murderer and a tyrant. I won't serve you. The crowd gasped. Matic's expression didn't change. And the others? Kyle and the 3rd soldier both nodded. Same, Kyle said. I see. Matic gestured to his guards. Execute them. The guards drew their swords. Alara moved before she could think. Light exploded from her hands, shooting across the courtyard and slamming into the platform. The guards were thrown back. The crowd screamed and scattered. Matic shielded his eyes, searching for the source. Alara lowered her hood. Looking for me? Every eye in the courtyard turned toward her. Matic's smile was cold. There you are. Guards! Touch her and I'll kill every one of you. Ronan stepped forward, throwing back his own hood. His eyes shifted to black and the temperature dropped. Frost formed on the ground where he walked. The guards hesitated. My brother, Matic said, still clinging to false hope, still thinking you can win. I don't need to win. I just need to expose you for what you are. Ronan's voice carried across the courtyard. Tell them. Tell everyone here how you killed our father, how you poisoned him slowly so no one would suspect, how you murdered the council members who opposed you. Lies, Matic said, but there was an edge to his voice now. Then explain the poison we found in father's chambers. Explain the dead councilman. Explain why you were so desperate to have me killed that you had your own guards beat me and dump me at the crossing. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were listening, questioning. Matic's jaw tightened. You have no proof. I have 3 witnesses who will testify. I have records from the palace healers showing father's symptoms match slow-acting poison. And I have this. Ronan pulled something from his pocket. A small vial. The same poison, found in your private chambers. That was a lie. They had no such thing, but the crowd didn't know that. Matic's expression cracked, just for a second. But it was enough. You're pathetic, he said. Clinging to a crown you never deserved. Father was weak. You would have been weaker. I did what needed to be done. The courtyard went silent. Matic seemed to realize what he'd just admitted. He tried to recover. I did what was necessary to make us strong. You killed your own father, someone in the crowd shouted. That's not strength, that's butchery. Others joined in, voices rising in anger and accusation. The tide was turning. Maddox's face went hard. Enough. Guards, arrest them all. But the guards didn't move. I said arrest them. One of the guards stepped forward, removed his helmet. It was another young soldier, someone Alara didn't recognize. No, he said simply. Another guard did the same, then another. Within seconds, half of Maddox's elite guard had stepped away from him. Maddox stared at them in shock. You dare! We dare, the first guard said. We're tired of serving a murderer.
Valen drew his sword.
Anyone who defies the king will die. Then we die free, another guard said. The crowd was fully in uproar now. Some were cheering, others were calling for Maddox's arrest. A few tried to leave but couldn't because of the press of bodies. Maddox's eyes went black. The temperature plummeted. The remaining loyal guards collapsed, clutching their throats. Valen fell to his knees, blood pouring from his nose. You want to see strength? Maddox's voice was that wrong, alien sound. I'll show you strength. He leaped off the platform. Ronan met him halfway. They collided in a blast of force that cracked the courtyard stones. Both of them were fully transformed now, eyes black, moving faster than should be possible. The crowd scattered. Alara ran forward toward the platform where the three soldiers were still bound. She reached them and used her light to burn through their ropes. Get them out of here, she told Dalen. What about you? I'm finishing this. She turned back to the fight. Ronan and Maddox were tearing each other apart, both bleeding, both past the point of reason. The thing inside them had taken over completely. They were going to kill each other. Alara raised her hands and poured light between them. The beam hit both brothers and threw them apart. They slammed into opposite walls and fell. Stop! Alara's voice rang out. Both of you, stop! Ronan's eyes cleared first. He staggered to his feet, breathing hard. Alara! Maddox rose more slowly. His eyes were still black, still alien. You think you can stop me? You're nothing. A broken outcast playing at power. You're right, Alara said. I was broken. I was cast out. But I'm not playing anymore. She let her power build, not explosive this time. Controlled, focused. Light poured from her hands, from her whole body, until she was glowing like the sun. The crowd gasped. Some fell to their knees. I am a luminary, Alara said. Born to channel the old power. The power that created the packs, that shaped this world. And I'm done hiding what I am. She raised her hands and the light intensified. It flooded the courtyard, bright enough to hurt. And in that light, Maddox's transformation faltered. The black in his eyes flickered. No, he gasped. No, you can't. I can, and I am. Alara walked toward him, light streaming from her palms. You wanted to control me, use my power for your empire, but you were wrong about something. I'm not a weapon. I'm a force of nature, and I don't serve tyrants. The light touched Maddox, and he screamed. Not pain, something else, like the light was burning away the darkness inside him, exposing him. His eyes cleared, went from black to normal hazel. The transformation broke. He fell to his knees, gasping. Alara stood over him. The light faded slightly, but she kept her hands raised. It's over. Maddox looked up at her. For the first time, there was fear in his eyes. What are you? I'm the person who's taking your crown. She looked at Ronan. He was watching her with something like awe. She gestured for him to come forward. He did, slowly, like he was approaching something sacred. This is your kingdom, Alara said to the crowd. Your pack, your choice. You've seen what Maddox is, a murderer, a tyrant, a man who killed his own father for power. She paused. And you've seen Ronan, a man who was betrayed, left for dead, and came back anyway. Not for revenge, for justice. She turned to Ronan. Tell them what you told me, in the watchtower. Ronan looked confused for a moment, then he understood. He faced the crowd. I don't want power for its own sake, he said. I want to build something better. A pack where strength doesn't come from fear. Where people aren't executed for questioning orders. Where being different. He glanced at Alara. isn't a death sentence. The crowd was silent, listening. I'm not perfect, Ronan continued. I've made mistakes. I'll make more, but I'll face them. And I'll try every day to be better, to serve you, not rule you. Someone in the crowd started clapping, then another. Within moments, the entire courtyard was cheering. Maddox stared at his brother with pure hatred. This isn't over. Yes, Ronan said quietly. It is. He gestured and guards moved forward, the ones who'd defected. They took Maddox by the arms and hauled him to his feet. Lock him in the cells, Ronan ordered. Under guard. He'll stand trial for his crimes. As Maddox was led away, he twisted to look back at Alara. You think you've won, but you have no idea what you've unleashed. The old power, it comes with a price. You'll learn that soon enough. Then he was gone. The courtyard erupted in celebration. People were cheering, crying, embracing. Soldiers who'd stood with Maddox were surrendering their weapons. The nobles who'd supported him were trying to quietly disappear into the crowd. Alara felt her legs give out. The power drain hit her all at once, and she stumbled. Ronan caught her before she fell. I've got you, he said. Thanks. You just overthrew a king. We overthrew a king. Fair point. He helped her to the platform, and they sat on the edge, watching the chaos. What happens now? Now? Alara looked at him. Now you rule. With you. Ronan, I meant what I said. You're not going anywhere. We're doing this together. I don't know how to be a queen, and I don't know how to be a king. We'll figure it out. He took her hand. Together. Alara wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she was still just an outcast healer who barely understood her own power. But looking at his face, bruised, bleeding, hopeful, she couldn't find the words. Okay? She said instead. Yeah? Yeah. He smiled. Then he stood and helped her up. Together, they faced the crowd. My people, Ronan's voice rang out. Today marks a new beginning. For Iron Fang, for all the northern territories, we will rebuild, we will heal, and we will prove that strength and justice can exist together. The crowd cheered. Alara felt something shift inside her. Not her power, something deeper. For the first time in her life, she wasn't hiding, wasn't alone. She was standing in front of thousands of people, glowing with power, beside a king who'd been left for dead. They were both broken, both cast out, and they'd just changed everything. The celebrations lasted through the night, but Alara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She stood at the window of what used to be Maddox's chambers, now Ronan's, watching the fires burn in the streets below. People were dancing, drinking, celebrating their freedom. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the calm before something worse. You should rest, Ronan said from behind her. He'd cleaned up, changed into fresh clothes. The bruises on his face were already starting to fade. Accelerated healing, another gift of whatever ran in his bloodline. Can't. Why not? Because this isn't over. She turned to face him. Maddox said something before they took him away. About the old power coming with a price. He was trying to scare you. What if he wasn't? Alara crossed her arms. I've been using this power without understanding it. What if there are consequences I don't know about? Ronan moved to stand beside her. Then we'll figure them out, together, remember? Together, she echoed. But the word felt hollow. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dalen entered, looking exhausted but alive. Sire, my lady, the council is assembled. They're ready to hear from you. Ronan glanced at Alara. Ready? No, but let's go anyway. The council chamber was packed. Nobles, military commanders, pack elders. Everyone who held any power in Iron Fang had gathered. The air was thick with tension. Some faces were supportive, others openly hostile. Ronan took his place at the head of the table. Alara stood beside him, uncomfortable with the scrutiny but refusing to hide. An older woman, Lady Marin, one of the surviving council members, spoke first. Prince Ronan, or should I say King Ronan, you've returned in dramatic fashion. I prefer to think of it as efficient, Ronan said. A few people smiled. Most didn't. The question before us, Lady Marin continued, is one of legitimacy. Your brother claimed the throne through your father's death and the support of the council. You've taken it by force. Some might call that the same thing he did. Except I didn't murder anyone to get here, Ronan said evenly. No, you had her do it for you. A man across the table, Lord Castor, heavy-set and scowling, gestured at Alara. A luminary, an outsider, an outcast with no pack loyalty. And you expect us to accept her as our queen? I expect you to accept that she saved your lives, Ronan said. Maddox would have executed anyone who questioned him, including most of you in this room. Perhaps, but that doesn't answer the question of succession. You may have birthright, but you've been gone for months, declared dead. Maddox ruled in your absence. Some would say that makes his claim legitimate. Some would be wrong. Would they? Lord Castor leaned forward. You come back with a strange woman, make wild accusations about poison and murder, and expect us to simply believe you? Where's your proof? Ronan pulled out the vial he'd shown in the courtyard, set it on the table. This is nightshade extract, slow-acting, hard to detect. I found it in Maddox's chambers 3 months ago, right after our father died. I confronted him. That's when he had me killed. Lady Marin picked up the vial, studying it. And you kept this, all this time. I gave it to someone I trusted. She hid it for me. Who? Me, said a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned. An old woman entered, the same one who'd helped Alara in the settlement. She walked with a cane, but her eyes were sharp. Mother Senna, Lady Marin breathed. We thought you were dead. Maddox wanted you to think that. He exiled me when I refused to support his claim, said I was too old to be useful. Senna moved to the table. But before I left, Ronan gave me that vial, asked me to keep it safe in case he didn't survive. Why come forward now? Lord Castor demanded. Because the truth matters, and because I'm tired of watching tyrants rule while good people die. She looked at Ronan. Your father was a good man, flawed but good. Maddox poisoned him over 6 months. I witnessed it. Tried to warn the council. No one listened. The room went silent. Lord Castor sat back, looking uncomfortable. Even if this is true, even if Maddox did murder the old king, that doesn't change the fact that you've brought an outsider into our pack. Someone with power we don't understand. Then maybe you should try understanding instead of fearing, Alara said. All eyes turned to her. I know what you think of me, she continued. Cast out, flawed, different. I've heard it my whole life. But that didn't stop me from saving Ronan when everyone else left him to die. Didn't stop me from standing against Maddox when he tried to execute innocent people. Didn't stop me from helping free this pack from a tyrant. Words, Lord Castor said. What we need is proof of loyalty. Proof you won't use that power against us. You want proof? Alara let light build in her palm. Several council members flinched. I could have destroyed this entire fortress. Could have killed everyone here and taken the throne by force. But I didn't. Because that's not who I am. I don't want power over you. I just want to live without being hunted for what I am. Lady Marin studied her carefully. What are you asking for? Nothing. Everything. I don't know. Alara let the light fade. I'm asking for a chance. To prove that being different doesn't make me dangerous. To show that strength can come from more than just violence. And if we refuse, Lord Castor asked, then I'll leave. Right now. Walk out those gates and never come back. She looked at Ronan. But I won't let you execute someone just because you're afraid of them. The room went quiet. Council members exchanged glances. Finally, Lady Marin spoke. I've seen enough bloodshed, enough fear. If Prince Ronan vouches for you, and if Mother Senna's testimony is true, then I'm willing to give you both a chance. And if they fail, Lord Castor pressed, then we'll deal with it, together, as a council should. Lady Marin stood. All in favor of recognizing Ronan Hale as rightful king of Iron Fang? Hands went up. Not all of them, but enough. And recognizing Lady Alara Voss as his chosen queen? Fewer hands this time, but still a majority. Lord Castor didn't raise his hand for either vote. I want it recorded that I oppose this decision. Noted, Lady Marin said dryly. Anything else? Yes. What do we do about Maddox? He still has supporters, people who benefited from his rule. If we just lock him away, they'll try to free him. Ronan's jaw tightened. Then we hold a trial, public. Let everyone see the evidence, hear the testimony. Let them decide his fate. The people will want blood, another council member said. Maybe, but that's their choice to make. Not ours. Ronan stood. I won't become what he was, even to stop him. The meeting ended shortly after. Council members filed out, some looking satisfied, others deeply unhappy. When the room was empty, except for Alara, Ronan, and Mother Senna, the old woman approached. You did well, she told Alara. I just said what I felt. That's usually the best approach. Senna studied her with those sharp eyes. But Lord Castor was right about one thing. Your power comes with consequences. The old magic always does. Alara's stomach dropped. What kind of consequences? That depends on how you use it. The luminaries of old, they channeled power from the world itself. Drew on the life force of everything around them. Used responsibly, it could heal, create, protect. Used carelessly. She shook her head. Entire forests died. Rivers dried up. The land itself became barren. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. No one taught you. Your mother probably would have if she'd lived. Senna placed a weathered hand on Alara's arm. But now you know, so be careful. Don't draw more than you need. Don't let the power consume you. How do I stop that from happening? By remembering you're human first, luminary second. By having people who keep you grounded. She glanced at Ronan. I think you found that already. After Senna left, Alara and Ronan stood alone in the chamber. You okay? He asked. No, but I will be. She took his hand. We should see Maddox before the trial. Why? Because he's your brother, and because I need to understand what he meant about the price. They found Maddox in the cells beneath the fortress. He was chained to the wall, but still conscious, still defiant. His eyes tracked them as they approached. Come to gloat? He asked. No, Ronan said. I came to ask you a question. I'm not interested in answering. Do it anyway. Why did you kill Father? Really? It wasn't just about power. You could have waited. He was dying already. Maddox was silent for a long moment. Then, because he was going to name you heir in front of the entire pack. Formalize it. Once that happened, I'd have no claim, no path to the throne. So you murdered him. I did what I had to, just like you did. Maddox's smile was bitter. Don't pretend you're different. You attacked me in my own fortress, turned my soldiers against me, used her, he nodded at Alara, as a weapon. We're the same. No, Ronan said quietly. We're not. I fought to protect people. You fought to control them. Keep telling yourself that. Alara stepped forward. What did you mean? About the old power coming with a price? Maddox's eyes locked on hers. You really don't know, do you? The luminaries. They weren't heroes, they were parasites. Every time they used their power, it drained something from the world, from the people around them. Your mother, did you ever wonder why your pack feared her? It wasn't just because she was different. It was because people got sick when she used her power. Crops failed. Animals died. You're lying. Am I? Ask yourself, when you used your power in the courtyard, how did you feel afterward? Alara's mouth went dry. She remembered. The exhaustion. The hollow feeling, like something had been ripped out of her. You felt it, Maddox said, reading her expression. That emptiness. That's the price. And the more you use it, the higher it gets. Eventually you'll drain so much that you won't be able to stop. You'll consume everything around you just to stay alive. That's enough, Ronan said. Is it? Or are you just afraid I'm telling the truth? Maddox leaned forward as far as his chains allowed. She's dangerous, brother. More dangerous than I ever was. And you're too blinded by whatever you feel for her to see it. Ronan grabbed the bars of the cell. For a moment his eyes flickered black. Then he controlled it, forced them back to normal. The trial is in 3 days, he said. Until then, think about what you want to say. Because this is your last chance to show any shred of humanity. They left Maddox in the dark. That night, Alara couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about what Maddox had said, about her mother, about the price. She slipped out of the chambers and made her way to the fortress library. If there was information about luminaries, it would be here. She searched for hours, pulling down old texts,
Reading by candlelight. Most of it was myth and speculation, but then she found something, a chronicle written by a pack historian 300 years ago. It described a luminary named Kira who'd tried to stop a war between territories. She'd used her power to create a barrier, a wall of light that neither army could cross. It had worked. The war ended, but Kira died 3 days later, and the land where she'd created the barrier remained barren for 50 years. Nothing would grow there. Alara closed the book with shaking hands. Can't sleep either? She turned to find Ronan in the doorway. I needed to know, she said. And Matic was right, at least partly. The power, it does take something. From me, from the world around me. If I'm not careful... She couldn't finish. Ronan sat beside her. Then we'll be careful. You'll learn to use it without draining yourself. We'll find a way. You don't know that. No, but I'm choosing to believe it anyway. He took her hand. You saved my life, Alara, multiple times. You overthrew a tyrant. You gave this pack hope. I'm not letting you give up now because you're scared of what you might become. What if I can't control it? Then I'll help you. That's what partners do. She wanted to believe him, wanted to think it was that simple. But the hollow feeling inside her, the reminder of how much power she'd used, told a different story. The trial came faster than she expected. The entire pack gathered in the Great Hall. Soldiers lined the walls. Nobles filled the front rows. Common folk packed the back. Everyone wanted to see justice done. Matic was brought in chains. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, but his eyes still burned with defiance. Lady Marin presided. Matic Hale, you stand accused of regicide, conspiracy, and tyranny. How do you plead? Guilty, Matic said. To all of it. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Even Ronan looked surprised. You admit it? Lady Marin asked. I do. I poisoned my father. I executed anyone who opposed me. I ruled through fear. Matic looked directly at Ronan. And I'd do it all again, because I was strong enough to do what needed to be done. Murdering your own father isn't strength, someone in the crowd shouted. Isn't it? He was weak, dying, clinging to old ways that don't work anymore. I freed us from that, made us feared, respected. You made us hated, Dalen said from his position near the wall. I fought for you, killed for you, and you executed my friends because they asked questions. Because they were weak, Matic said, like all of you, too afraid to do what's necessary. The crowd erupted. People were shouting, some calling for immediate execution. Lady Marin had to bang her gavel repeatedly to restore order. The council will deliberate, she announced. In light of the defendant's confession and the testimony we've heard, we will determine an appropriate sentence. I can save you the trouble, Matic said. I know what you'll decide. Death. It's the only sentence that makes sense. Then you accept it? Lady Marin asked. I accept that I lost, but not that I was wrong. He looked at Ronan again. You think you're better than me, but you'll learn. Rule long enough and you'll understand. Sometimes mercy is just another word for weakness. Then I'll be weak, Ronan said quietly, if that's what it takes to be better than you. The council deliberated for 3 hours. When they returned, Lady Marin's face was grave. Matic Hale. For the crimes of regicide, conspiracy, and tyranny, this council sentences you to death by execution. The sentence will be carried out at dawn tomorrow. Matic didn't react, just nodded, like he'd expected it. As the guards led him away, he paused by Ronan. One more thing, brother. That darkness inside you, the thing that makes your eyes go black, that was Father's gift to us. His bloodline, his curse. The more you use it, the more it takes, just like her power. He glanced at Alara. You're both dying. You just don't know it yet. Then he was gone. That night, Alara found Ronan on the battlements, staring out at the city. You don't have to watch, she said. Tomorrow, the execution. You don't have to be there. Yes, I do. He's my brother. I owe him that much. He tried to kill you. I know. But he's still family, and maybe... Ronan's voice cracked. Maybe if I'd been here, if I'd paid attention, if I'd seen what he was becoming,
You can't blame yourself for his choices. Can't I? I was so focused on being the dutiful son, the perfect heir. I never asked if he was okay. Never noticed how much he resented me. Alara moved to stand beside him. He made his choices. You made yours. That's all any of us can do. They stood in silence for a while. Then Ronan said, "Do you think he was right about us dying?" "I don't know, maybe." She looked at her hands. "But I'd rather die trying to be good than live as a monster." Poetic. "I try." He smiled. Then, slowly, he turned to face her. "Marry me." Alara stared at him. "What?" "Marry me. Not because of politics or duty or because the council says we should, but because I love you. Because you're the bravest, most stubborn, most incredible person I've ever met. Because I want to spend whatever time we have left together." "Ronan, I know the timing is terrible. I know we've only known each other a few weeks. I know we're both broken and we don't know if we're dying or if there's a way to fix it. But I don't care. I love you. So marry me." Alara felt tears sting her eyes. "You're insane. You keep saying that because it keeps being true." "Is that a yes?" She grabbed his face and kissed him. It was messy, desperate, perfect. When they broke apart, she was crying and laughing at the same time. "Yes," she said. "You ridiculous man. Yes." Dawn came too quickly. The execution was held in the main courtyard. The same place Maddox had tried to kill Alara. The same place Ronan had reclaimed his throne. Now it would be where his brother died. The pack gathered, silent, solemn. Even those who'd hated Maddox looked uncomfortable. Maddox was brought out. He'd refused a blindfold, refused any last words, just knelt before the block and waited. The executioner raised his axe. Ronan stood rigid beside Alara, his hand crushing hers. The axe fell. It was over in seconds. The crowd dispersed slowly. Some people looked relieved, others just looked sad. Alara felt numb. "It's done," Ronan said quietly. "Yes." "So why doesn't it feel like we won?" "Because winning isn't supposed to feel like this." They held a funeral the next day. Small, private. Just Ronan, Alara, Lady Marin, and Mother Senna. They burned Maddox's body according to pack tradition and scattered the ashes in the mountains. "He was my brother," Ronan said, watching the ashes blow away. "For all his faults, all his crimes, he was still my brother." "I know," Alara said. "Do you think he was right? About the curse? The darkness?" "I think he believed it. Whether it's true?" She shrugged. "We'll find out. Together. Together." The wedding was held a week later. Nothing fancy, just a simple ceremony in front of the pack with Lady Marin officiating. Alara wore a dress that Mother Senna had made. Ronan wore his father's formal robes. When Ronan slipped the ring onto her finger, a simple band of silver, Alara felt something shift inside her. Not her power, something deeper. A sense of belonging she'd never felt before. "I love you," Ronan whispered. "I love you too." The pack cheered. Alara Voss, the cast-out healer, had become Queen Alara of Ironfang. In the months that followed, they worked to rebuild. Ronan reversed Maddox's cruelest laws, reopened trade with neighboring territories, established a council where even common folk could voice concerns. And Alara studied every text she could find about luminaries, every scrap of knowledge about the old power. Mother Senna taught her meditation techniques, ways to channel energy without draining herself dry. It was slow, difficult. Some days she felt like she was making progress. Other days she felt the hollowness inside her growing. But she kept trying. One evening, 6 months after the coronation, Alara stood in the same spot where she'd first used her power in anger. The courtyard where everything had changed. Ronan found her there. "What are you doing?" "Testing something." She raised her hand, let a small light build. Not explosive, just a gentle glow. "Watch." She released it, not outward, but down, into the ground. The light sank into the earth, and for a moment nothing happened. Then a flower sprouted. Then another. Within seconds, the bare stone was covered in blooms. "How?" Ronan started. Mother Senna was right. The power doesn't have to destroy. It can create. I just had to learn how to give instead of taking. Ronan knelt and touched one of the flowers. It's real. Of course it's real. Alara sat beside him. I think I understand now. What my mother was trying to do. Why she stayed with the pack even when they feared her. She was trying to show them that power doesn't have to mean violence, that being different doesn't mean being dangerous. Did it work? No, they killed her for it. Alara looked at the flowers. But maybe I can finish what she started, show them another way. You already have. They sat in the garden Alara had created, watching the sun set over Ironfang. The city was healing, slowly, imperfectly, but healing. Do you think we'll be okay? Alara asked. With the curse, the power, all of it? I think we'll survive. Maybe not forever, but long enough. Long enough for what? For this. Ronan gestured at the flowers, the city, the life they were building, for all of it to matter. Alara leaned against him. Good answer. 2 years later, Alara stood in the same courtyard again. But this time, she wasn't alone. A child, a girl no more than 5, ran through the garden, laughing as flowers bloomed in her wake. She had her mother's eyes and her father's dark hair. Careful, Ronan called. Don't wake the roses. The girl giggled and kept running. Alara watched her daughter play and felt something warm in her chest. Not her power, something better, something that had been missing her entire life. Peace. She's strong, Ronan said, coming to stand beside her. His hair had started to gray at the temples. The darkness inside him was still there, but he'd learned to work with it instead of fighting it, most days. She is, Alara agreed. Stronger than I was at her age. Think she'll be a luminary? Maybe, or maybe she'll be something else entirely. Something new. Does that scare you? Terrifies me, Alara smiled, but I think that's normal. They watched their daughter create chaos in the garden, breaking rules, making messes, learning who she was, just like her mother had. And in that moment, standing in the garden she'd created from nothing, beside the man she'd saved from death, watching their daughter bloom with possibility, Alara Voss finally understood something. She'd never been broken. She'd been becoming.